Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we are going to be talking about something that's been in the news quite a bit lately. Trump's plans for the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
You guys wanted to know how this whole situation with him wanting to be the chairman could affect people like you and me.
Right.
And luckily, we've got some great articles here to help us figure all that out.
Yeah.
We've got CNN, The Guardian, and The New York Times.
Excellent sources.
So let's jump in.
Yeah, this is definitely a unique situation.
Yeah.
I can't really think of another time when a former president tried to make themselves the head of a big cultural institution like the Kennedy Center.
Right. It's not something you see every day.
No.
So let's sort of break down what's actually happening here.
Yeah.
These articles are all saying that Trump is trying to replace some of the board members, including the current chairman, David Rubenstein.
Right.
And he basically just wants to make himself the new leader.
Yeah, and it's especially interesting how he's going about it. Announcing these terminations on Truth Social without even telling the Kennedy Center first.
Yeah.
That just adds a whole other level of unconventionality to the situation.
Unconventional, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely getting people talking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what about the Kennedy Center? What's their response to all this?
Well, it seems like they were pretty caught off guard.
Yeah.
They put out a statement saying that they usually do things in a bipartisan way, and that the chairman is usually appointed by the board,
Right.
not the president.
Not the president.
So this is a pretty big change from how they normally do things.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. The Kennedy Center's been around for decades.
A long time.
Yeah, it was authorized by Congress way back in 1958.
Wow.
And its roots actually go back even further than that to an idea Eleanor Roosevelt had.
Oh, wow.
So it's got this long history of bipartisan support, which makes this move by Trump even more surprising.
Yeah, so we've got Trump making this big power move. We've got the Kennedy Center trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
And a whole lot of uncertainty in the air.
A lot of uncertainty.
But where does that leave the average person?
Yeah.
Like, what does this actually mean for someone who enjoys going to a show?
Right.
Or maybe even dreams of performing on that stage?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We need to look past the headlines and think about the real impacts this could have.
Yeah.
Like, what would a change in leadership mean for the types of shows they put on and how accessible they are?
Right.
Could it affect funding for arts education programs?
Those are really good questions.
Yeah.
And what about the art itself? Trump has said pretty clearly that he wants to stop what he calls drag shows, specifically targeting our youth at the Kennedy Center.
Right.
So does that mean we could see less artistic expression there?
It definitely raises those concerns.
Yeah.
If they decide certain types of art are not okay, what message does that send to artists and arts organizations?
Right.
Could it lead to self-censorship where artists are afraid to create certain things?
That'd be a shame.
Yeah.
So to figure out what this could mean for normal people,
Right.
we need to look more closely at what Trump has said about his vision for the Kennedy Center.
Okay.
He keeps talking about making it great again.
Yeah.
And bringing in a golden age in arts and culture. But what do those phrases even mean in the world of art?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Like, what does a golden age look like to Trump?
Yeah.
And how could his own personal taste and values change the direction of the Kennedy Center?
Exactly.
It really sounds like we could see a big change in the culture of the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
I mean, you mentioned that they usually have bipartisan support.
Right.
But they also have a pretty wide variety of art that they show there.
They do.
Everything from classical music to modern dance to theater and, even drag shows.
Yeah.
So if Trump wants to stop those kinds of performances, could that mean we'll see less variety in what they offer?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
The Kennedy Center attracts a lot of different people, and that's partly because they have so many different things to see.
Right.
If they start focusing on just one type of art or one point of view, it might make some people feel like they don't belong there anymore.
Yeah.
Then they might not go as often.
Exactly.
And wouldn't that go against what the Kennedy Center is supposed to be all about?
Right.
Making the arts accessible to everyone?
Yeah, they have all those initiatives,
Right.
like educational programs for kids and discounts on tickets. Could those be affected too?
It's certainly a possibility. I mean, those programs rely on funding,
Yeah.
both from the government and from private donors.
Hmm.
And if the leadership changes, it
Yeah.
could change how they decide to use that money.
So they might decide to give more money to certain types of art
Exactly.
and less money to others.
Yeah.
And that could mean those programs that are supposed to help people access the arts
Yeah,
might not be able to do as much.
it's a real concern.
So this could affect people even if they don't go to shows at the Kennedy Center very often.
Right.
If they care about those outreach programs,
Mm,
or if they think it's important to support different types of art.
exactly. This is about more than just what happens on stage.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about the whole world of art
Right.
and how changes like this can affect everything.
So let's go back to those phrases Trump keeps using.
Great.
Great again and golden age.
Yeah.
The CNN article said he wants to put people on the board who agree with him
Yeah.
about what this golden age should look like.
Right.
But what could that actually mean?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We have to think about what those words mean to Trump
Yeah.
when he's talking about the arts.
Okay.
Does he want to go back to a certain time in history?
Hmm.
Or does he have certain artists or types of art in mind?
Well, he has said that he prefers more traditional art forms.
Right.
And he's said pretty clearly that he doesn't like drag shows.
Especially for young people.
Right.
Yeah.
So could this mean he wants to move away from performances that some people might see as too modern or experimental?
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And that raises some big questions,
Okay.
like what kind of art would be allowed at the Kennedy Center under Trump's leadership,
Right.
and what kind of art would be left out?
Would they focus more on artists who are already famous
It's a good question.
and works of art that people already know?
Maybe.
And maybe give fewer opportunities to newer artists
Yeah.
and people who are trying new things?
That could definitely have an impact
Yeah.
on the artists who get to perform
Uh-huh.
and on the audiences who get to see them.
Right. Because it would change what kinds of art people are exposed to.
Exactly.
The New York Times article made a really interesting point
Okay, what's that?
about how this could have a ripple effect on the whole art world. Like if artists start to feel like they have to make a certain kind of art
Right.
in order to get funding or be allowed to perform,
Yeah.
could that lead to them censoring themselves?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
You know, if they feel pressure to make art that fits a certain message or style,
Mm-hmm.
they might not feel as free to express themselves.
That would be a shame.
Yeah.
And what about artists who actually speak out against these changes?
Yeah, that's another interesting point.
Trump has a history of not getting along with artists who criticize him.
Right.
So would artists be afraid to perform at the Kennedy Center
Uh-huh.
if they thought they might get in trouble?
It's possible.
Yeah.
And that brings up even bigger questions
Like what?
about the role of art in a democracy.
Oh, yeah.
Should art be a place where people can share different opinions,
Mm-hmm.
even if those opinions challenge the people in power?
Right.
Or should art just reflect the views of the people who are in charge?
That's a really important question.
And
And I think that's why so many people are paying attention to this situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about who's in charge of the Kennedy Center.
Right.
It's about how this could affect artistic freedom
Yeah.
and whether everyone will have the same opportunities to
Yeah.
experience and create art.
It's about the whole culture of art in America
It is.
and how decisions like this can change it.
So we've talked about how this could affect what kinds of art the Kennedy Center shows,
Bro?
how it could affect funding for the arts,
Right.
and how it could even affect artistic freedom.
Yeah.
But let's think about what this could mean for a regular person.
Okay.
Like imagine you're someone who enjoys going to the Kennedy Center to see a show.
Yeah.
How could this affect you?
Well, think about the different shows you usually see there.
Uh-huh.
If they start offering fewer types of shows
Right.
and focus on just a few specific things,
Uh-huh.
would you still be able to find things you like?
That's a good question.
Would you still get to see new and interesting things? Or would you only see things that fit a certain worldview?
I see what you mean.
It's not just about the shows themselves. It's
Yeah.
about feeling like everyone is welcome at the Kennedy Center
Yeah.
and that there's something there for everyone.
And what about if you're a parent
Uh-huh.
who takes your kids to those educational programs at the Kennedy Center?
Right.
Could those programs change too?
It's possible. They
Right.
might start teaching about different things.
Like what?
Maybe they would focus more on certain times in history
Uh-huh.
or on certain types of art.
That would be a big change for families
It would.
who want their kids to learn about all different kinds of art.
Yeah. This situation has implications that go beyond the Kennedy Center itself.
Yeah.
It affects people's personal experiences,
Uh,
and it affects the whole culture of art in our country.
it's clear that this is about more than just politics. It's about the role that art plays in our society and how it affects all of us. So it feels like we've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, we've talked about how this could affect the kinds of shows the Kennedy Center puts on, how it could affect funding,
Right.
and how it could even lead to less artistic freedom.
It's a lot.
But what do we do now?
Yeah, that's the important question.
Like, what can a regular person actually do if they're worried about this?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
And I think we've definitely done that in this deep dive. You
Yeah.
have to understand what the consequences could be before you can take action.
So we've got the awareness part down. What's next?
Engagement. Don't just let this be a news story you forget about.
Right.
Keep paying attention to what happens with the Kennedy Center.
Okay.
Read different perspectives.
Uh-huh.
Decide what you think.
Yeah.
And be ready to speak up about it.
So it's more than just reading articles.
Right.
How can people actually make their voices heard?
There are a lot of ways
Right.
you can contact your elected officials
Uh-huh.
and tell them what you think about artistic freedom
Right.
and about the role of places like the Kennedy Center.
Okay.
You can support organizations that fight for the arts and that try to create laws that protect creative expression.
And what about just in our own communities?
Become a patron of the arts.
Oh, yeah?
Go to local shows.
Mm-hmm.
Visit museums.
Yeah.
Support artists who are just starting out.
Right.
Show that you care about different types of art.
That's a great idea.
Sometimes we forget about all the amazing art that's right here in our own neighborhoods.
We do.
And when you support local artists, you're sending a message.
That you value what they do.
Exactly.
And don't forget about just talking to people.
Right. Conversations are important.
Talk to your friends and family, your coworkers,
Yeah.
about these issues.
The more we talk about how important the arts are
Yeah.
and the challenges they're facing,
Uh-huh.
the more we create a culture that values art.
That protects it.
Exactly.
So we need to stay aware,
Uh-huh.
engage with this issue,
Right.
make our voices heard,
Yeah.
and support the arts.
Locally and nationally.
That's a call to action.
It is.
Because the future of the arts isn't just up to politicians.
We're people on board.
It's up to all of us.
Right.
The choices we make,
Uh-huh.
the conversations we have,
The art we support.
it all matters.
It all shapes the world we live in.
We started this deep dive by asking how Trump's plans for the Kennedy Center could affect normal people,
Yeah.
like you and me.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's clear that this could affect everyone,
Yeah.
whether you go to the Kennedy Center all the time
Right.
or just think it's important to have art in our society.
It's a reminder that even decisions that seem far away can actually have a big impact on our lives.
So we encourage you to keep learning about this issue.
Yeah.
Stay informed.
And keep talking about it.
The future of the arts depends on it.
It does.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.